Welcome, folks, to the OKD Working Group meeting for February 13th of the year 2024. And I'll drop the agenda in the chat there and take a quick look at it. Let us know if there's anything we're missing, anything we need to talk about. And please put your name in the attendees section so we know that you were here. That helps us out quite a bit. All right, does the agenda look good? Any suggestions, changes, anything we need to add to the agenda? All right, well then let's jump right into it. So we know that Luigi is not going to be here today, and I don't know that we have anyone else that could speak to what's happening with OKD and CI/CD pipelines. Doesn't look like anyone is here that can speak to it. Oh, no, actually, no, that's it. So the only thing that I would add is that Zed pointed out something that I hadn't noticed before, which is there is a OKD repo for, well, actually, let me backtrack for folks that weren't at the community meeting. Brian, maybe we should talk about the community meeting stuff first to sort of set the stage in terms of the conversation today. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead? Go ahead, and if you want.
Okay. Yeah. So the main talking point on the community call last Tuesday was the fact that OKD is leaking some licensed content from Red Hat into into the build of OKD. So some of the libraries that require entitlement through a Red Hat subscription is being built into some of the containers with OKD, and that's both the Fedora and the SCOS versions of OKD. So there does have to be an action where, before we can really move on from the current build, we need to effectively remove those. So find a way of actually building from a source or from a repository that's not the Red Hat Enterprise Linux repository. So that is an action that is sort of critical importance. There's a lot of work going on within Red Hat to understand the size of the problem, understand exactly what is being leaked and what needs to be fixed. But the ask was, can the community help with this? And what we want to do is try and get a group of community developers that are willing to help out with this task of, we want to make it Tecton based, so like the SCOS pipeline for building OKD based on SCOS, we want to add the capability to the pipeline to actually build a clean version of OKD. That was the basic gist of it. There were some ancillary questions like, can we use this as an opportunity to do things like add multi-architecture builds, because we don't have those, and things like that. The other thing that we have to be aware of is that we'd started looking at the operators. So this running in parallel with the operator, while we don't want to stop the operator initiative, I think there was an understanding that we don't have sufficient resource within the community to run it both full pelt. So I think some people will switch from the operator work to the OKD build project. But I think there are some in the community that will keep the operator work ticking over. I think that was it. Have I missed anything? Any key details?
No, I think the one thing is we we're talking about setting up a project and a repo on OKD project GitHub, and it turns out, as Zed pointed out, there is actually an images repo there already. So it's actually OKD-project/images. I'll put the link here that Vadim had actually created a while back. Now, Vadim is out right now, so I haven't had a chance to hear from him if this would be a good place for us to coalesce around for this project, or should we create a new one?
Were they the images that we had a problem with last year that they were coming from somewhere internal, things like the OC client and things, or is it a bigger repository than that? I haven't had a look.
It,
You know what, I'm poking around at it now, and it's kind of, there's not a lot of documentation. There's no README,
it
so I haven't had a
looks
chance to
it looks
ask
to be
him.
the equivalent of OpenShift/images, which contains um a lot of foundation images which are used for other bits of OpenShift. I don't know how it's used in the wider CI and CD, but it's basically very similar Docker files to what's in the OpenShift/images version, but instead of from a rel base, it's from a CentOS stream base, which I think is what we discussed in the working group is the kind of starting point for all of the migrations is to switch out the from rel to from CentOS and then fix what's broken.
Now, the last activity on this was October 16th, so it doesn't look like they've been using it. So let's talk with Vadim and find out. But does anyone have any thoughts? I mean, this seems like a logical place to do it, but if Vadim says otherwise, then we can create another one, I guess. Because ultimately, we once the project is done, we do want a place to keep the image info, right? Build info. So that's the gist of it. Does anyone have any questions about what happened and what was discussed at the community meeting? It pretty much took up the whole hour, and then actually, I think a few minutes after. Any questions about any of that? And in general, the community, the folks that were on the call seem pretty enthusiastic about it. And it also provides an in maybe for other folks to get involved. So, and while we're talking about community stuff, the Slack channel is getting pretty active. So folks are starting to have discussions in there. So if folks aren't aware yet, check out on the Kubernetes Slack. There's the channel OKD-dev, and there's lots of conversation that's starting in there. All right, let's move on now to FCOS updates. I see Timothy. Good to see you, man.
Hey, folks. Can you hear me correctly?
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, I didn't prepare much for this week, so I don't have much to say, but I'm here to answer questions if there are any.
Does anyone have any questions for the FCOS side of the house? Going once, going twice. All right, I guess we have no questions. And for folks that would be interested in ever helping out the FCOS community, their meetings are, what is it? Is it 11 a.m. Eastern? What's the time tomorrow? It's Wednesdays at, um, yeah. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find it.
It's 4:30 UTC on Wednesday. So depending on where you are.
Yeah. So 4:30 UTC. And these are chat-based meetings. So.
And this chat-based, and we're now running them on Matrix instead of running them on IRC.
Cool. Thank you, Timothy. All right.
It's much easier to join.
Next up, SCOS updates. Doesn't look like we have anyone here to speak to SCOS updates. Nope. Okay, and we gave the community development updates. The only other thing that I would say is what got bumped from the community meeting is talking about the survey, this year's survey. So we'll work on that at the next meeting a little bit and try to get that out ASAP. And for folks that didn't notice, Vadim is cutting 15 releases only now, it looks like. So check out 415 OKD on FCOS releases. There was one, matter of fact, I got to put out some promotion for it. There was one that came out Saturday, so, or Friday. All right, next up, what else do we have on the agenda here? We have agent-based installer stuff for folks that didn't hear. That work has gotten reached a milestone. Do you want to speak to that a little bit since we have it on the agenda? Make sure folks in this meeting are aware of it.
Yeah. With the 4.15 release, the agent-based installer became available for installation. The agent-based installer is a novel approach that we developed to hopefully make it easier the installation of OKD. And it's based essentially on building a single ISO, starting from a couple of configuration files, and then you boot all the nodes of your cluster with that ISO, and all the rest automatically happens. In addition, there are a number of pre-flight validations that hopefully makes it easier to detect problems that could hamper or block the installation upfront. And amongst the other things, this approach does not require any additional provisioning hardware, but one of the node is used as a ephemeral node for managing the orchestration of the installation, and the end it's pivoted into a normal node. So this is a very short introduction, and now it can be tested out. For making it simpler, we also published a simple project on the OKD. It's called Mini Agent. Maybe I can share the link.
And I can confirm that works because I tried that after last meeting.
Fantastic.
So,
because I think the important thing to say is also that gives
yeah.
you a single that repo gives you a single node install.
Yeah.
So that's something we've been missing for a while. So that actually works and gives you a single node install.
And if you can try it out, I mean, that's just a starting point to allow people starting playing with it very quickly in a very simple manner. Any feedback or any problem, I think it would be more than welcomed. I don't know. I think it's all for the update. I've also prepared a small video. I don't know, Jamie, if was already available.
Almost done with it. So it'll be up in the next day or two. So we've got 3 videos coming up. We've got 2 videos from Timothy, and then we've got the agent-based installer video, and that'll kick off our video foundation series.
Cool. And that's it.
Cool. Thank you for your work. All right. And moving on now, that's pretty much it. Is there anything else that folks want to talk about? Any bugs, any concerns? Yeah, Timothy.
Yes, I made the video, but I don't think it got any feedback, at least not in the ticket Are things good there, or should I make
Yeah,
adjustments?
yeah, things are good. We looked at it and things are good. I'm gonna put the intro bumper intro video, the little 3-second thing with our mascot, and then put a little introduction slide that basically says welcome to the Foundation's video series, and then they'll be up. So,
Awesome. Great.
and these will be in a separate playlist on the OpenShift YouTube channel. All right. Anything else that folks want to talk about?
I was hoping Luigi or someone's going to be here today.
He's not going to be here today, no.
Yeah, does anyone remember building SCOS? Because we had a conversation that you could build it on Kind with Tecton. I'm struggling to find out where that is. I'm just wondering, have they pivoted that? Because there's now a project that's got Argo workflow rather than Tecton in it. I'm just wondering, have they pivoted to the project, or am I not finding the repo?
So are you at OpenShift/OS where then they break out and link to the different, where are you at that you're seeing this? Or are you talking just the pipelines?
Well, I was looking in the OKD project repo because I
Okay.
thought it was in there. Because I thought a good way of starting this thing would be to actually just make sure that we've got instructions on how to build the SCOS pipeline, or how to set that up and get that running. So we've got the OKD payload pipeline.
Yeah, Bruce, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no, I was actually going through a similar process that Brian was going through, and looking at all the projects we have under OKD project. And it seems to me that we've gotten to the point of where there's a whole lot of stuff that hasn't been touched for over a year, and it's not really, and many of them are similarly named. So it's not clear where you start, and maybe we need like a meta README or something, or renaming of the projects, or something that makes it a lot clearer. And like I said, was mentioning there, or maybe it was you, Jimmy, that there are projects without READMEs, so you then have to sort of dig in and try and figure out what the heck was the intention. And no, I remember a few years back, there was instructions on even setting up Kind, and so on and so on, and like setting up Kind, installing Tecton, um, as well as I'm just trying to remember other frameworks where some of which you had to actually set up persistence, um, and on and on and on. And I think that in the interim, all of that has gotten a lot more work and a lot more serious, but in the process, it's maybe gotten fragmented. So whether or not that needs something, I mean, it's a documentation issue largely. Whether or not that means we need to get the people that have actually been playing with those together and produce a page which goes on okd.io or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's probably a good time to just take a few minutes and be a little bit more organized. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that one of the things that I need to do is turn on notifications for the entire group so that I can see when these things get created, because a lot of stuff got created by Vadim and Christian et al. That I think we weren't aware of. So let's do that, and I will reach out to Vadim and find out where what the purpose of the images repo is, and then when Luigi is back next week, we can find out, or we can chat him and find out the specifics of for the build pipeline.
Yeah, and I think it's especially timely because I did get the impression last week that there's a bit of a retreat from the Red Hat side, um, and they would like the OKD community to be a bit more self-supporting, and that's understandable. Um,
And
So
good.
that
Yeah.
and good. I mean, that's sort of a natural growth process. But that means that before they sunder ties and say hasta la vista, that we need to sort of organize the resources that we have so that we can actually do something with it, and be a little bit more clear about what, because like there is a lot of stuff that you can only do if you have access behind the paywall.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the impression last week that Red Hat knew what all those even were.
Yeah,
So
because Bruce, I don't know whether you've actually looked. The pipelines that I've seen is we take an OCP release, look at how
right,
that was built, and then build an equivalent. So we never start from scratch. We start with a licensed object from Red Hat, and that's what initializes the build, or that's what seems to initialize the build, which obviously Red Hat can do because they own that licensed material. But us as a community, we don't have that ability.
right. Well, I
Right.
mean, some of the things that seem to shock some of the, and I'm guessing relatively new Red Hat employees, um, aren't really a legal issue because Red Hat is building the OKD releases. So if they want to build it, they want to release whatever they want to use real, which I mean, obviously they should be using FCOS or maybe SCOS. Uh, but I mean, legally, that's not really a problem. But if we were going to do it, it would become a problem. So it would be exceedingly useful if there's any withdrawal that it is accompanied by a handoff, so that we can actually do our parts and
Yeah.
sanitize whatever things they want sanitized.
Well, and I think we can get there relatively quickly because as I navigate around through the repos, I think we could create a single page like on the root level README that's this is the project for pushing the release. This is the project for building the release. This is the project for building the operators, and actually have a coherent sort of index of what each one of them does so that one page you can go and get a sense of where all of the components are. Yeah, Zed, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't mind taking that as an action to go through all the repos, figure out what they do, and create an index meta page for the GitHub organization because GitHub has that as a feature.
Yep, that'd be fine.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
good.
the other thing I would just warn against is, for example, if you look at the OKD release pipeline, you need an OKD PROW SA authorization token.
Right.
So some of these pipelines do cross the barrier into Red Hat land.
Well,
So
and not to cut you off, Brian, but what I would say is just let's notate that in the index, right? And just say this currently has dependencies internal to Red Hat. And that's a good reminder for us. And as we check off the boxes, right, to pull them out of Red Hat infrastructure, then we can delete those little notes next to it.
Yeah, and I gather like FCOS seems to be making a number of changes on how they want to do things, both with their build process and also various compression schemes that they're looking at. Um, Timothy didn't mention any of those, but they appear on sort of the mailing lists.
Timothy, do you want to chime in on that?
Yes, we are looking at different compression scheme, but nothing has been decided yet. So we're looking at potentially using ZSTD as a compression mechanism for our artifacts, but it's very much in the investigation phase. We haven't decided anything. So yeah, what exactly is the concerns here? Or I don't. Feels like I
Well,
missed something.
I actually didn't have any concerns, but I guess probably my point is that these Red Hat projects are not static. They progress, with time and investigate new tools, a variety of things. So if we were to try and, from a totally disconnected fashion, put together our own build system, it would be sort of frozen in time. If we now, hopefully that wouldn't happen because we continue to maintain communications.
Right. And so Timothy, one of the things that came out of the last meeting is the desire again to pull OKD on FCOS out of PROW and get it on our infrastructure. And so that's really key. Oh, there is one other thing. Brian, did we mention this in the recap this at the beginning? The other thing that was discussed is getting support from outside entities for infrastructure where needed and whatnot. So we do have MOC, but it would be nice to get some big players to support this, to have the resources and also to have their name attached to it, right? To give us some promo. So that's another thing that came out of the community development meeting. All right, any other questions? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, just like from response what you said, I fully support like the OKD community being able to build their own releases and do all of this. This is very much what we've been trying to do for a lot of time. I haven't been very active recently in the OKD projects because there's just tons of stuff happening, but it's still our goal. It's still the objectives here that we make the system, we make the base, and then the community is able to build everything else and ship that on their own. I don't know what the status of work here on the other teams here, but yeah, it's still the goal.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Any other thoughts? All right, well, let's go forth and work on our things. Zed, you have a task item to create an index of the repos, and please do note while you're scanning through them, if you see anything related to internal Red Hat stuff so that we can let folks know that they can't just jump in and use it.
Yeah, I think that there might also be a couple of repos which were started and then abandoned. I noticed this when I built my operator catalog. I think I noticed 3 other attempts of creating an operator catalog, actually. Some in the OKD project namespace, some actually there was one in the OpenShift ecosystem one. So I might use it as an opportunity to kind of suggest to you which repositories can potentially just be archived if they're not currently being used.
That'd
just
be
to simplify it.
Thank you. Thank you for jumping in. All right, folks, we will have this meeting again in 2 weeks, and community development meeting is next week. We'll see you all next time. Be well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.